Somewhere internally, I just had this strong feeling that came from somewhere deep inside of me that just said, look, life doesn't have to be this way. And there's an infinite potential for it.
I didn't then. A lot of people these days don't spend any time on their minds. Hey guys, we're back again for another session of Get Real with myself and Shredder. This time we're talking about some tough times. I opened my phone this morning and it was all doom and gloom. It was talking about liquidation of some businesses throughout New Zealand. And we just talk about tough times, whether they're here to stay, how to get through them, and maybe the tough times aren't such tough times. Maybe they're setting you up for good times.
Okay, it's great to be back again.
Yeah.
Good to see you. And here we go for another Get Real.
Yeah.
Ready to get real. And so what's happening? What's happening in your world, and what are you noticing out there?
You know, it's interesting out there at the moment. I woke up this morning and looked at my phone, and the first thing that came on there was the Herald website, and, you know, that cafe in Auckland and Ponsonby Road, SPQR's gone into liquidation. So, I mean, for me at the moment in real estate, we're dealing with a lot of people out there that are hurting. You know, there's liquidations going on. There's people struggling out there. I've got a house I'm selling at the moment. They literally can't pay the next mortgage repayment, so they want the house sold. So it's tough out there. It's sort of a doom and gloom wheel, and it's easy to sort of get wound up in it, you know?
Yeah, like even in my work, which is really, as you know, focused so much on getting the mind in a great place, and, you know, I guess people would say sort of positive focus.
Yeah.
Every single day I'm hearing someone that's having a, you know, a tragic story, or they're really down about the way things are financially at the moment. And, you know, quite frankly, there are a lot of things that are going on. So, yeah, it could be a good idea for us to have a bit of a chat about, you know, tough times. So, like, something I talk about quite a lot is tough times are there for a reason. Like, you know, it's we all love the great times when money's flowing and things are going well and life looks great. And,
Yep.
you know, we all talk about things like law of attraction when that stuff is going on. But, you know, for me, that kind of stuff is actually happening all the time. And
Yep.
I think it's as important, if not more important, to look at, you know, what we always have tough times. That's what I've noticed. Like, you know, if we look at our lives, it's not always good. It's not always bad. There's ups and downs. And for me, like, that's just really necessary. And I think there's real critical times, critical things that we get out of tough times. So perhaps we could explore tough times and
Yeah.
how we've got through them and what they've done for us.
I think several things from that. I think tough times aren't always financial times. They can be tough times dealing with sickness or death or something like that in the family. But there's that great saying, and it goes along the lines of, you know, tough times make tough people, and easy times make soft people. And then it sort of goes round in the cycle, and it talks about generations and economies and things like that. And I just think personally that these are the times where you're actually the exciting times, because you've got to be better at what you do. If you're in business, you've got to give more service. You've got to be the best of the best, because people are looking for experience. They're looking for someone to guide them through the tough times. Like in real estate, my field, it's, you know, when the market's booming, kind of the attitude out there upon people selling houses is that anybody can do the same job. I don't believe that's true. I think even in the booming times, the best people get the best prices. At the moment, people are looking for guidance through choppy waters. So experience really pays off. But it's interesting because you can build a business in these times. You know, this is the times where you stand out, where you can gain on competitors, where you have other competitors fold. So there's an opportunity out there for people that want to work hard and who are really good at what they do. And, you know, leaps and bounds can be made in the next few years, I think, in business, because there is just a little bit more work and skill required. And those people that don't want to work, or, you know, don't have substance behind them, will be left behind.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, for me, it's these times really make people. You know, it's everyone succeeds during, or most everyone succeeds during great times.
Yeah.
But when times get challenging, it's when greater opportunities seem to be open, but only fewer people take those opportunities and then go, you know, that much farther. And for me, it's you know, the dedication certainly, and the commitment, and it's also to me a quite a strong mindset issue. Of course, I'm going to take it there because I'm a mindset and strategy coach, but I think it's just super important, because it's, you know, these are the times when our fears, you know, when times get tough, be it economically or, as you say, otherwise, because you're right, it's tough times are just tough times, whatever the case might be. it's like it's the time that our insecurities and our fears and all of that tend to come up more. Our buttons are more easily pushed, and
Yeah.
there's more negativity all around us. So we're more surrounded by all of that. And for me, it's like for people that are able to utilize that. I mean, I know for me personally, and I thought it might be cool for us to talk about a few personal times where this has happened, that during tough times, it sort of forces me to go, hey, I see this block and limitation I've got. If I just allow myself to hold on to it and I don't get past it, then I'm going to be stuck. And if I'm stuck right now, it's going to cost me a lot. It's not like I can just keep, sometimes I can be stuck. In good times, we can be stuck and still be okay, or, still do well enough. But in times like this, it's not good enough. And so, because it will swallow us up. And so I think if I can address those things and get past them, but then I find, hey, when I do that, and I go, say, for example, a common one is fear of rejection. So say someone's I talk to a lot of business people, as you do in my work, and a lot of business people are afraid of going out there. Like one of the things I'm seeing for people at the moment is people aren't buying right now, and it's this kind of shy away mentality. I'm kind of even scared to go and offer my services because we're already deciding that people don't want to spend money at the moment or whatnot. And so when we have that, though, underneath it is like a fear of rejection potentially, or some sort of fear. But it's like, okay, if we have that, most people do, if we're honest, take a look at it.
Yeah.
Most people fear rejection.
Definitely.
And so, but if we go, okay, you know what? If I let that get on top of me, I'm not going to create a business. And so I'm just going to do what I need to do, whether it be figure it out, like figure out how to get past fears of rejection, do some mindset work or something on that nature. But for those people that do, they gain that breakthrough of growth that when times get good, they're going to be that much farther ahead. And, for me, I think those difficult times really make us, or they give us the opportunity to be made. And
I think difficult times make you assess your own value. So, like, people at the moment, when they're talking about there's no money in the economy, people don't want to buy stuff. They have to buy stuff. People have to sell houses, people have to buy coffees, they have to buy food, but they want better value. And that's maybe not the cheapest, but they want the best, and they want a really good coffee. They're not going to pay for rubbish coffee or rubbish food, but they're happy to go out there and pay for good quality stuff that's well priced. So I think that's what it comes down to. So people and businesses need to look at value.
Yeah.
And the value that they're giving other people for their transaction. I had a catch up with a friend of mine yesterday, and she's running her own business, and it's probably been going now for, I don't know, 3 years, maybe 3 or 4 years, and she's doing pretty good, but she's not making a lot of money. So she's in that stage where, she's treading water, keeping her head above the water, but it's not enjoyable because she's not making any money. So it's a hard graft, And the thing is, we looked at it yesterday, and really from 2 or 3 years ago, she hasn't changed what she's doing. So she doesn't almost believe in herself that she's worth the value that she charges to her clients. And I looked at that for myself, and I thought, well, I go to sell someone's house, and our commissions can be $20,000 or $30,000 to sell someone's house, and that's a lot of money. So every time I go to somebody's house, I actually believe wholeheartedly, and I've seen times and time again, that I can impact more than that value into the sale of a property. And then I believe in the marketing because I've seen how investing in the marketing from an owner's point of view really works. So I've seen the results in my 20 years of selling houses. So I guess I believe it a little bit a little bit easier. But I think a lot of people, when they're starting a business or they come across their first tough times in business, they don't believe in themselves. So that's the biggest thing I've got. You've got to believe in your own worth and your own value, because if you don't believe it, you're not going to be able to sell,
Yeah,
What do you
look,
think about that?
it's something that I think a lot about, and woke up to that when we use measurements for money, we say net worth, right? It's a very interesting way to talk about how much money a person has.
Yeah.
Net worth. If you think about that word worth, I can really see that there's a quite a strong connection between our net worth and our self-worth. What we value ourselves, in the end, it's such an important part of it, because if we don't value ourselves, then we won't ask for what we're worth, and
Yeah.
in these times we'll just, there's so many people out there now. Like, one of the phenomenons that I see is there's people underselling themselves. Particularly one of the areas, I mean, I work in a lot of different arenas, but I have quite a few clients in construction, and some of these, for example, subcontractors and even, main contractors are like super slashing the prices so they can get the contract, but they can't actually afford to do the job at that level. It's not putting any value in for themselves. And, you said it a little bit earlier, some of these businesses are going, there are some of these, people are going out of business. And it's, for me, it's like we have to value ourselves, and it's a big leap to make, I think, Cameron, for people to see that. I know for me to see that, but I'm just really, really thankful I understood that if I hold my ground and value who I am, then other people are going to value me too. And that's what I've found to be true. If I really get clear about, hey, this is what I'm offering, I value you as the person I'm offering that to, big
Yeah.
time, and I also value myself. And as a result of that, here's a fair transaction of what can happen. And I've just found it's, there's a mindset, and I'd be interested to hear your feedback in your real estate career, that if this is something that you've noticed. But it's, if I value myself, then I don't, then people come and they see that you value yourself. They know that you have something
Yeah.
to offer, and they come to you. But if you don't value themselves, people just take advantage of you, kind of chew you up and spit you out. And then we end up getting resentful and then usually walking away, from the business or that. So yeah, I'd be interested to hear your feedback on that.
A couple of things come to mind. I've done in the last few weeks. I've watched that documentary on Netflix about Lance Armstrong, and about the Tour de France, and it was interesting getting into Lance's mind and how positive he was about his skills and how confident he was that he could win the Tour de France when he was 19 years old and things like that. And I mean, obviously his mindset told him that he could do it. What I'm thinking about is, what's the difference between a mindset telling you that you're the best and you're going to win, and ego getting involved and telling you that you're the best but you're not?
Yeah.
I mean, that to me is the difference. Is it a genuine, had the skills, he had the mindset, and he won. But a lot of people probably think the same, and they think they're the best riders in the world, but they don't win. So what's the difference with him?
Yeah. So for me, this is a really important topic, and I think so important for right now. For me, that there's a hidden key there. When you're talking about athletes at that level, that, so many fine margins in that level of the game.
Yeah.
And I had an interesting conversation with a very high level coach in the rugby scenario not long ago about this, and we were comparing notes on what does give that team that extra edge. And
Yeah.
my experience with it is really comes down to one word, and that's certainty. It's who's got the most certainty. And there are some people that, that you fake it till you make it thing. Like, that's what some people do. I'm the best, like you're saying, I'm the best, but deep inside of themselves, they don't actually feel that. And so while they're psyching themselves up, when it comes down to, at that level, they're just so talented, so gifted, that if you're not 100% or, very close to 100% certain on all different degrees, then somebody else is going to be more certain. And to me, it comes down to certainty. It's a tricky situation, Cameron, because some part of certainty is really conscious, but there's other parts of certainty that are very, very deep in the unconscious mind. But if I really said it, and I think that's important for people to know right now, like right in these kind of financial times, because we're talking about that, people get very doubtful. Get very doubtful about the prospects. They start sizing their visions down. Oh, I just want to make it through, and am I going to make it? And we're full of doubt. There's no certainty in that. And I find, like, I just know you, and you probably don't even think about it anymore, but you're just certain about what you're doing. You just keep doing it, and you're certain about that it's going to work out well. At least that's what comes across to me. And it's that certainty that leads to the results at the end of the day. So yeah, I'm sort of, I understand fake it till you make it, but that only works to a degree. It's like, I think that gets people started. But at the end of the day, if we're really going to win, we have to be certain. We have to be certain of who we are. We have to be certain of our value. We have to be certain that we've got something to do in this world and we're going to do it. And nothing's going to stop us. No economic time is going to stop us. No challenge is going to stop us. That's the certainty that there's really through and through. Then that's where you see, like I said, you just wonder how do crazy things happen. And, I think I talk about athletics and sports a lot. It's where you can see it a lot because you're like a team that shouldn't have won.
Yeah.
And in a crazy fashion. In the last play, some crazy thing happened in the last second. But if you really, really investigate it, you'll see that team had just a degree more certainty than the other one. It's really interesting. So that's my take on it anyway. So something that I've noticed.
Yeah, it's a really interesting environment out there at the moment, but you've got to look at it as exciting. I think exactly what you said before is people retrench. They go back into their shell and they're just trying to survive rather than flourish. But one of the mentalities that I've always had is when times get tough, I like to flex. And that's how we talk as a team within my real estate team. Other agents out there are not spending as much money on advertising and not doing things, they're not investing in their businesses. And the people that do invest in their businesses, whether that be financially or time-wise, or they take on new staff, sometimes they're the people that come out the boom and they're actually, 10 steps ahead of everybody else. And when there's a little bit more cream out there, they're the first ones to start scooping it back in. Yeah. So it's positioning yourself for the next good ride.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that frustrates me at the moment, especially talking about property and real estate, is that everyone's talking that we get to the bottom and this is the bottom and then it goes up again. From my experience in life, there's the highs and there's the lows, and most of the time we're in the middle.
Yeah.
And I just want smooth sailing. I just want middle ground, really. I don't want to be in the booms, and I don't want to be in the highs for too long. I just don't want to be in the lows either. I want to be middle ground. And I think building a business to suit middle ground is what you really want to do, because typically the highs and lows don't last too long, do they?
No.
But I don't think it's unusual for us to be in 5, 6, 7, 10 years of like middle ground.
Yeah.
We all forget in real estate how, like in the 1970s, I've tracked houses and they've sold 3 times over 10 years and they're all pretty much sold for the same price.
Yeah.
So it's not unusual for us to have just a flat market for the next 10 years. But everyone at the moment is talking we're at the bottom, it's going to go up. Usually it's property developers who are trying to sell the product to you. But, I think it's great.
And the human psyche that wants to think, times are bad now, but they're going to get better.
Yeah.
It's that kind of holding on to something.
Yeah.
But I'm loving what you're saying, because it's the sustainable places where I think was what you're saying.
Yeah, middle ground.
Keep steady. Yeah.
Yeah. So like my catch-up session with my friend was great because, from it, she realised that, there's a lot of opportunity out there at the moment and she's got to value herself more, because people are looking for, because in my experience, people aren't looking for the cheapest person. There'll be some that do, but people are looking for the best person.
Yeah.
And my experience in life is that if you pay for good people, it reaps dividends.
Yeah.
So if you've got good lawyers around you, you've got good real estate agents, good coaches around you, good staff working with you, you'll get through these times really well.
Absolutely. And because you get, you get what you pay for. There's some real truth to that usually.
Yeah.
I mean, there's, but if you find somebody that's really quality, you're going to get way more out of paying them than trying to skirt the bottom of it all.
Yeah. And saying that it's tough, like I find it tough, like dealing with these people this week who, literally have had the house on with another real estate agent. They can't sell it. They've tried really hard, and she just desperately needs it sold. And there was tears, there was emotions, but basically I had free rein just to tell them what they needed to get done. And I'm sure that we'll get this house sold in the next couple of weeks for them. So. There's people out there just crying for help. So look for the right people around you. The biggest mistakes that I see at the moment is people using the wrong people. So you're looking
out of desperation,
and they're trying to save money. So maybe they'll go to the cheapest person, thinking that's going to save the money, and it's going to cost them more money or cost them time.
Waste the money, and
that's what happened with her. She went to a cheaper real estate company with no experience, and it actually cost her more money in the long run because it cost her time.
Yeah, she lost it.
And stress and pressure and all of those sort of things.
Yeah. Well, hey, I thought it might be a good idea, just because there are so many people, in this kind of scenario at the moment. factual things have happened. Interest rates have risen, and for whatever reason you might say that that's happened, that's put people in a tougher position. Prices are high, inflation, etc. I thought it might not just, and as you said earlier, which I love that you said that it's not just economic tough times, it's just tough times that bring something out at us. But I thought it might be a cool thing for us to make this a bit personal, because we call this Get Real, and just take maybe one or two instances of something that really was a tough time for us, and just kind of share, how did we get through it, or what did we learn from it? Because I think that's where, for me, personal experience and the sharing is where, that's where it really is, because we can, concepts are really great, but it's like, hey, when you've applied something, which I know you have, and I have too. So what do you think? What's a real tough time that you've been through, and what would you
Probably
share
one of my
from
really
journey?
tough times is not so much financial times, because money's money at the end of the day. You don't need it to live, like different amounts of money will help you live a different way. But one of my toughest times that I remember is when my father got diagnosed with prostate cancer. And I remember the call from mum, and I was driving down Beeley Ave in Christchurch, and my mum rang up and said, "You better get home, your father's got cancer." And that's all I heard. And of course, my mind just went, this is 12 years ago now, my mind just went to the worst possible thing. And my mind thought that, shit, Dad's going to die tomorrow. And that's kind of what I thought, and I had tears in my eyes. I couldn't concentrate. I remember ringing up my business partner then, Jackie Lane, and said, "Look, I've got a full day in front of me. This has just happened. Can you help me?" And my mind went to the worst possible thing. And today, Dad's still alive. He's still got cancer. He's a hippie kind of thing. So he refused chemo, radiation, all that sort of stuff. And it was probably the best thing for him. And us as a family, it made me see what was really important. But we had a really tough time with that, because, Dad refused everything. And at that stage, we wanted him to take all the help from the doctors and from, chemo and all that, but he wouldn't do it. So we thought he was doing the wrong thing as a family, but it turned out he was doing the best thing. But it made us regroup and get together as a family and assess life again. So that was probably one of the toughest things we've got through.
And so when you assessed your life, like my take on it, and see if you agree, that those times are actually, although they're tragic, there's an equal, positive side to them. And so what came out of that, like in terms of what did you, I think you've shared how you got through it, but
I think looking back on it made us spend more time as a family with my brother, with my mum. It made us value them more. Made us pick up the phone a little bit more, make sure they're both okay. Because you end up in your world where no one else matters apart from you. I had young children at that stage, and I was running my business, and all you think about is yourself. People get so internally, focused that they forget everything else around them. And at the end of the day, it brought everything into perspective, and how much money I'm earning and how many houses I'm selling. It means nothing. When your father's laying on his deathbed, essentially, that's what I thought it was going to be happening in the next few days. It really came home that nothing else really matters.
Yeah.
But it also came home to me, now that I look back on it, that my mind tricked me into all of these things that, weren't really true. And I made it worse, it was a bad situation, but I made it horrific. Yeah. And I just went to, Dad's going to die tomorrow.
That's what we do, isn't it? Like, so you certainly wouldn't be alone there.
Looking back on it now, that was a really tough thing for a family, but it was a good thing. I mean, we've got that great saying, there's only good and good. We both love that saying. And there was a lot of good that come out of it. And I still don't focus on it enough. I looked at another podcast this week, and, this is a lawyer in America, and he was talking about love, and he was talking about sex, and he was talking about all this sort of stuff. And he said, if you said goodbye to everybody like it was the last time you're going to see them, it'll change your life.
Yeah.
So, and I know there was some other podcast I've looked at, and it was some celebrity, and they spent the last 6 months with, it might have been Will Smith actually, with their father dying, and every day they gave their father a hug and said goodbye, because they're not sure whether the next morning they were going to be there to say goodbye. The miss went on for 6 months, and they hugged and said goodbye for 6 months every day, and it just changed their world.
Yeah. Well, the truth
So
is we don't know the last time, do we?
we don't,
Yeah.
like at any stage you can get hit by a bus or whatever. So it puts life into perspective, doesn't it? We've talked
Yeah.
about that before.
Well, again, that's what, again, another thing that tough times they do, and for us.
Yeah. What's a tough time for you?
Oh, look, I don't know why, but I just go back to that. I have had many tough times, challenges in my life, but I go back to that, what I call the original one, which wasn't original. I was about 23 years old, but it was just that time that I was on the streets. I was homeless. I had living in the States then, and had a whole bunch of trouble due to drug addiction years and that. And my father came, and when he saw how bad it got, he took me to the Greyhound bus station in Atlanta, Georgia, and said, "Get on the bus. You got to go somewhere." And I closed my eyes and pointed, and ended up pointing across the country to Seattle, Washington, all the way in the northwest, from the southeast to the northwest. And I remember getting out that day and just walking around. I had basically $5 left, and I put that in the Greyhound, the locker, to keep my bags, because I was trying to carry my heavy bags around this town, and I just didn't know anyone. I didn't know anyone. I had nowhere to go. And that was the day where it really all hit me. It was about 12 years in the making. Started using drugs when I was 13, or so I guess 10 years in the making by that time. And it just all hit me. Like, I was alone. I had no one. I was alone with my thoughts. I literally had nowhere to go, and it just really all hit me that this was the culmination of my life. And that was exactly the moment that when I was walking around Seattle, there's the Space Needle there, which is like Sky Tower in Auckland, or Sydney has the Westpac Tower, etc., in Aussie. And I looked up, and that's the moment that, it was in that. It's just the lowest moment of my life. Like, I was bankrupt. I was just so lacking any kind of self-worth, or, I just felt so bad about myself. I just everything that you could imagine. And again, I was homeless and I had nowhere to go. So that was really the low moment. But it was in that moment, like, it's really, it's fascinating, because that was the moment that I had this flash in my mind. Where did it come from? But the flash was seeing in my mind's eye all the different ways that my life could go. So I saw continuing to take the drugs, and it was a very short pathway, and I could see a gruesome ending to my life in the not distant future. And I saw all these different ways. Like, I could have a mediocre life, and I could have what I call my Space Needle life. And I just saw this, it's being not on top of everything, but like living the greatest potential and all of that. And I think that's my moment, because it just so illustrated to me, and I can't take any credit. Like, it just happened. But that was the moment that, in the lowest of that low, all that opportunity was there. And I have to say, Cameron, that was the moment that it changed. I mentioned 12 years because I actually continued to go on a downward spiral for another sort of year and a half, close to 2 years after that. But that seed was planted.
Yeah.
And when that year and a half came, and I decided, okay, now's the time, I'm willing to do whatever it took. I've just had this, talking about what these times give you. What was that, 30 years ago, just over 30 years ago, and I'm still fueled by, like, I'm still have that desire that occurred during that time that keeps me going, that keeps me learning, that keeps me interested in, what's this life really about, and dedicated to making the most of it. And so I think that's my example of where real tragedy leads to, there's all that opportunity in it.
So was that the best day of your life or the worst day of your life?
It was both, wasn't it? Like, that's the
I
interesting
would have
thing.
thought
It
so.
was really both.
Yeah,
I
it
mean, I
depends.
remember.
That's all how you look at it, isn't it?
Yeah, well, when I
looking
look back
in
on it,
hindsight's a wonderful
Well,
thing.
when I look back on it, going with the it's good or it's good,
Yeah.
it was the best day, and if
Yeah.
I think about it, like, all of that was, I was just working with somebody the other day, and, sometimes I deal with some pretty, kind of heavy things in my work. Like, people show up in different mind states. They could be depressed. They can even be, if I'm being honest, they can be suicidal at times.
Yeah.
And one of the important things for me is, one of the things I feel blessed about is because I can be with those people, and in that moment, because I've been there, I can be with those people and they know I'm with them. They know I'm not trying to lecture them. They know I'm not trying to impart something on them. They know I can just be with them. That's one of the greatest gifts, because, people have said to me over the years, I don't feel like you're judging me. I don't feel like you're sitting over there thinking you're better than me. And I share my story and I go, literally, I can't do that, because there isn't anywhere that you can go that I haven't been similarly in my own mind state. And that's one of the real gifts that came out of it. And so I think about all those times, that's why I think this conversation we're having today is really important, because we think good times are good and bad times are bad. But bad times, or so-called bad times, are having all those things in them that we can utilize. Connects us with a part of who we are that we otherwise would never get to. Like your connection with your family when that happened with your dad. You may never have had a chance to connect with that if that something tragic didn't happen. That's turned out to not be so tragic. It's turned out to bring the family together. So, yeah, I say it's worst day or bad day, but I think what we say is it's good or it's good. It's either good because it's helping us to go farther, or it's good because we get to eat, drink, and be merry for a bit and enjoy the good times.
I think one of the other things I'm learning from listening to you is also to share it. Like a lot of people get into themselves and they get worse and worse and worse, and it's just a doom and gloom mindset because they don't talk to other people. When you go and talk to someone else, when you're feeling at the bottom rung of life, or things are getting too tough, people are too embarrassed to go and talk to somebody. But as soon as you go and talk to someone, the world lifts a little bit more.
Yeah.
And, like, I guess the key is talking to the right people, possibly.
Yeah.
But if I'm ever down or annoyed or having these sort of things, it's about sharing it with a few people, and everyone's got a few people that they can share anything with, basically. And I think you need to do that because they'll get you through it, and they'll realise it's not as bad as what it is, and maybe there's a way out, and maybe there's a silver lining here somewhere, and you just can't see it because you're so doom and gloom. So my biggest advice is always talk to somebody. Find someone to talk to if you're
as you said earlier, the right people. Find the right people to talk to, and
like all these situations. Like when someone kills himself, I've got some clients of mine, and their son committed suicide in their house, and like I look back at that and I think, wow, I mean, imagine dealing with that as a parent. It's horrific. But that child, if they just talk to somebody that day or that time, the whole thing could have been resolved as easily as that.
Yeah, it's super important. Like, and you get to be there for that person too when that happens to them, right?
Yeah.
And it just I'm with you on that. Don't keep it in, because that just eats your way, and we don't get all that support that you're talking about.
Yeah. It's a big thing at the moment, and it's going to be a big thing, in my opinion, for the next year or so. I don't think suddenly we're going to pop out of this environment that we're in at the moment, and it's all going to be on the way up. Interest rates are not going to change overnight dramatically. So I just think we're going to be in this environment for the next year or so, and I think see the opportunity, talk to people about it, look for growth, and where you can grab a bit of ground, either in your own life or in your own business or these sort of things. I think that's the sort of thing we need to be looking for in the next few years, is not just looking forward to the next boom. It shouldn't be looking from boom to bust, boom to bust. It should be trying to find middle ground and trying to just get through this in a normal environment, because it's our minds that put all the extra stress and pressure on ourselves, really.
Yeah.
And I've talked about this before. When I was in the GFC crisis in 2008, I was so focused on what I was doing in my business and trying to run a really good business that I didn't even care. I didn't care what was happening out there in the environment at the moment. I just kind of blew through it.
Yeah.
So sometimes you can read too much of the paper, and you can read too much articles about how tough it's going to be and when it's going to change, and you end up just thinking, just waiting for it to change, and you're going backwards.
Yeah.
So I just think that's really important to me, is don't get bogged down to it. I call it smoke on the water.
Yeah.
Smoke on the battlefield, I call it.
Yeah.
So the battlefield of life, there's all these things that can sometimes slow you down or trip you up or, push you in a direction that you don't need to go. And you need to, I think a lot of life and a lot of business is actually seen through the smoke.
Yeah.
And
seeing it for what it is.
Seeing it for what it is. And I think that's really important. And that's the main thing everyone's got to do at the moment, is see through the smoke on the battlefield.
Well, it's like you said too, interesting when we talked about our challenges, even though we just started this with economic times, we both brought up personal challenges, because even when the interest rates come back down and everything is different, and people are still going to have personal challenges, and we're always
aren't they the biggest challenges? With family members, with life, with death, with sickness. I mean, at the end of the day, having no money or running out of money is something, but it's tough, it's challenging, it's awful, but I still think the magnitude of dealing with a death or something within the family or a sickness within the family supersedes
be a lot
everything.
more, you know, definitely so. And
Yeah.
so it's like, you know, it's not like, this is just reminding me as you were saying that, like one of the things I talk about is, you know, don't let the circumstances impact you, impact your circumstances, you know,
Yeah.
impact the circumstances that you have. So, you know, what you're talking about, put down the paper and whatnot. You know, we read all the stuff and it's like, oh, the circumstances are this. And I'm like, no, that's just that's the circumstances according to someone else. Like,
Yeah.
what do you want to create, and what do you want to do with your, you know, your challenging situation? So
Well, it's the same as me this morning. Picked up my phone, turned that on, saw about the liquidation of the cafe in Auckland, and then they rattled off that Smith and Coey's gone into liquidation. The other places have gone into liquidation. So then you think, Jesus, it's bloody tough out there, you know, and you're retrenched. So if I hadn't read that article first thing on my phone this morning, how would have my day
you just
changed?
would have been thinking about what you wanted to do, right?
Well, we wouldn't have been talking about this.
Yeah,
you know?
that's true. That's
so
true.
so that the impact that's had on my life already.
Yeah.
We're trying to turn it into good, but that's the impact that it has. So, you know, that smoke on the battlefield that I didn't see through, you know, it made me think about life and should I do this and should I do that? So, you know, be really careful out there.
I agree. And, you know, put your focus in the right place. I just think about that paper, and if it was, if it really told the story of all the people that are doing well, we'd have a balanced perspective, you know, to go forward. But I think we're talking about today, make use of those times and go forward. So great conversation.
Sounds good.
As always enjoy it, having a chat and getting real with you.
Look forward to seeing you next time.
Yeah, likewise, Cameron.